Tom, how we doing?
Really well, Aaron.
Good.
Great to talk to you.
Good. Nice to talk to you again. I kind of missed you. We got to talk a lot more in the past, but I'm happy to have you on today. And let's talk about, first of all, Justin Trudeau. Apparently, I use that word because I think it's accurate, apparently unwilling to budge on this whole $250 and including seniors and people with disabilities. But we heard Jagmeet Singh say if that doesn't happen, he won't vote for this when it comes up again. So where's this going?
This is probably the most important thing that's happened in Canadian politics since the beginning of the sparring, as the Conservatives have tried to take down the Liberals, and the Bloc is usually with them. But, of course, the NDP has always been there to prop up Trudeau. So if somehow Jagmeet Singh were to contrive of a way to vote with Trudeau, even though Trudeau has not offered the $250 to retirees, I mean, this is the thing. It's one of the last constituencies that Trudeau has. I mean, it's the last group of voters that still more or less likes Trudeau and the Liberals, and they're willing to vote for them. And Trudeau still wants to throw them overboard and tell them, oh, by the way, people who earn 150 grand, they're getting $250 each. So if you have a couple, they get $500. But you, who can barely get by because you've got a fixed pension, well, you get nothing. So if he continues to say that, and this thing does come up for a vote, of course, Singh's going to vote against it. Now, the real question is Trudeau going to bring it back for a vote? So he's made the promise. He said that the checks are only going to flow in April, so you can suspect that there might be a little bit of game playing right now on the Liberal side. They've pushed through this absurd reduction of the GST for 8 weeks. Why do I say absurd? Because who could be against reducing a tax? Well, first of all, the country's broke, so we can't really afford to be giving anything away, whether it's tax or a $250 check. But at the same time, if you ask anybody who's ever been in business, anybody who sells anything and is going to be stuck with this labyrinth of changes, some things have the tax taken off, other things don't. You have to read a booklet to find out what stays on and what doesn't, as if that's the only thing that people who are struggling to get by with a business have to do, is to wade through page after page of wherefores and therefores and whereases on the part of the tax department, and then find somebody to reprogram, of course, their cash registers. It's bonkers. I mean, we say that, it becomes sort of, you look at something the government says, this doesn't really make any sense and so forth. This one is gold medal. This is 5-star lunacy, thanks to Justin Trudeau and the people around him. Because I was in Ottawa this week and I spoke with a bunch of people who all confirmed the same thing. This did not come out of the senior bureaucracy. This is not something that the finance department generated. They had to come up with all the fine rules after for the application of it. This was drafted by the communications staff around Justin Trudeau as a publicity stunt. He was going to buy people's votes with their money, taking taxes off things that he knew that they really wanted, like game consoles for kids for the Christmas holidays and Christmas trees. And it is completely crazy because it's almost impossible to apply. Oh, and good luck to the poor business that misses one of the lines or charges the tax when they shouldn't. Good luck to them when they file their tax returns this year, because they're going to get in big trouble with Revenue Canada if they haven't gotten it perfectly right.
So my question then becomes, if the NDP and Jagmeet Singh made this fairly clear yesterday, I had a chance to speak to him yesterday afternoon. He's not going to go along with this $250 check unless he gets what he wants. The Bloc and the Conservatives voted against this to begin with. Justin Trudeau's kind of left here, between hell and high water. And at the end of the day, if they all vote against this because he didn't include whoever the Bloc wants, whoever the NDP wants, does he not get to say, look, I wanted to send you free money, but these parties prevented me from doing this? Is this not strategically a good thing, a smart thing to do, or not?
No, because the average voter doesn't give a hoot at that point. They just want to get rid of Trudeau. Look at the polling numbers. I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody that unpopular? It was Brian Mulroney at the end of his second mandate. And, people said nice things about him, later on in life. But when it was time for him to go, it was time for him to go. And staying with that comparison, Justin Trudeau is doing the exact same thing his father did to John Turner, who was his successor at the Liberal Party, gave him zero time to organize, to prepare, to present himself to the Canadian voting public, and he got creamed by Mulroney. And it's the same thing that Chrétien did to Paul Martin. It's the same thing that Mulroney did to Kim Campbell, and on and on. This is classic behavior of someone who sticks around for too long. Are they doing it by accident or by design? They're doing it because they think that maybe they can turn things around. And when they see that it really is over, then they say, okay, find somebody else to do this. But of course, it's too late for them to do anything. So whether it's Mark Carney or Christy Clark, doesn't matter. If the Liberals come up with a new leader who might otherwise have had a chance, Trudeau's going to leave them almost no time. The real question is there ever going to be a vote on the $250?
Right.
And Trudeau's not obliged to bring this thing back. It's a horrible idea because, first of all, Canada is broke, and second of all, it's not addressing the problems of the right people. But if he just decides to sit on it and say, well, I'll bring it back with the budget, then he buys himself a few months without getting defeated on this very issue.
He's not going away, is he, Tom? You certainly don't have that impression.
Well, I have a bet with one of my colleagues with whom I do English television. We bet a bottle of wine on this because I have to admit that, I love being the stubborn one and sticking to my guns on this sort of thing. I actually still believe that Trudeau will not be running in the next election. He has no choice but to say he is. It'll exactly like Valerie Plante, right up until the last second. A day before she announced she wasn't running, she was still running. Oh, yeah, of course I'm still running. And it's the same thing with Trudeau because you can't give any hint to the contrary. And I also believe that he thinks that maybe if I come up with just one more stunt, then I'll leap ahead 20 points in the polls, but that's not going to happen either. So the real question is when. So if he does stick around, he's going to get thumped by the Conservatives, and it'll be a lousy way to end his political career. But again, as I say, I'm more than willing to admit that I could be completely wrong about this, and Trudeau could stubbornly hold to his own and simply decide to run. But I continue to believe that he's not that crazy,
okay.
And I don't think that he's going to stick around. I think somebody else is going to run.
Let me move from federal to municipal. We spent a lot of time yesterday talking about Mayor Plante's decision to pedestrianize a couple of streets downtown on St. Catherine. There has been a lot of pushback on this, Tom, from people who should have been consulted and say they weren't, including merchants. We spoke to a couple on the air. The local city councilor for that district, not consulted. The city make a mistake with this?
Well, I think you're on to the most important aspect of this, is Valerie Plante consults people in her head, because none of the people she said she consulted were actually consulted.
Yeah.
So there's a word for that, but I'll avoid using it. It is Friday, and we're about to start the weekend. So let's just say this. Remember when Valerie Plante held the largest public consultation in Montreal history to find out whether or not we kept Camillien-Hood roadway open up onto the mountain? The full report of the committee said you have to keep that roadway open. She completely ignored it. I remember her bounding up the mountain with her buddies from Projet Montréal saying, oh, actually, no, we're going to close it. So now there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit by the cemetery against the city of Montreal because they're not allowed to close that road. And it's the same Valerie Plante who's doing the same thing with St. Catherine Street. She claims that she consulted. She never consulted. Who asked for more misery on St. Catherine Street? Like, downtown Montreal has just become a desert. You can't park, you can't drive, you can't do anything. The odd delivery truck tries to get in and everything is blocked. And she's decided that it's going to be for pedestrians only. She decided that on her own. She never consulted the people she said she consulted. It's not enough to say she's leaving. Next year there'll be an election and somebody will replace her. She has to be stopped. I mean, this thing has to be stopped until there can be a proper consultation. And you know what? The reason she's not consulting properly is because people are going to say the same thing they said on Mount Royal. No, we don't want your vision of this thing. But she just persists. And in this case, it's not only that she didn't hold a proper consultation, she's actually telling a whopper about whether or not there was a consultation.
Yeah, the part about her speech during the press conference that really stuck out for me was when someone asked about that, but some business people saying they hadn't been consulted, and she said her answer was, I understand some people feel they haven't been consulted, as if that's a feeling that one has, as opposed to I either was or I wasn't. But she actually said that, and I think for me that was everything.
But it's so perfect. It so perfectly summarizes Valerie Plante. It's fabulous.
By the way, and I asked this sort of just abstractly, you have a mayor here who's already told us she will not run again.
Right.
I've heard a couple of people suggest, you know what, she's already made up her mind, so what she's going to try to do now, and maybe other politicians do this, Tom, maybe you'd have a better idea of this or not, will try to push through as much as they can, knowing that they're not going to have to account for this in another year from now.
Yeah, but the good news is as long as she gets replaced, this can easily be overturned, just like the decision on Mount Royal. right? I mean, as long as she can be gotten rid of by Montreal voters next fall, then we can keep the Chameleon roadway open. It's such a beautiful way for families to go up. If you're in that part of Montreal and it's your only access to some real nature and your kids can go and play and there's trees everywhere, keep the thing open. She wanted to close it, but a new administration can, of course, do the opposite. Same thing with St. Catherine Street. It's not too late to save what was once Canada's most beautiful shopping street.
Even without that, I don't know. By the way, I have coming up just after the 5:30 news, we're going to be talking to Michel Leblanc from the Chamber of Commerce, who also took a shot at the city over this yesterday as well, something you don't see all that often. So,
well, ask him if he's going to run. A lot of people say he should.
Yeah, I actually do. We taped this earlier. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but that's coming up. Have you heard any names?
I'll bet you he didn't say a categorical no.
You'll have to listen, Tom. I'm afraid I can't give it away. Have you heard? Because we keep talking about this every time, this administration does something that people go, what the hell is going on? Have you heard any names at all being mentioned?
Well, his. Michel Leblanc.
Beyond Michel Leblanc?
I hear. Yeah, there's a bunch of names out there, but I think his is the most high-profile one.
I'm afraid he's going to shoot that down, but I can't say. Tom, thank you very much. You have a great weekend.
You too.
Take good care.
Bye.